Andrea, and this week I have a real special announcement. I've got a free webinar coming up. You guys love listening to the podcast. How about some free teaching online? It's happening April 11th at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central. It's called 9 Practical Tips for Finishing the Year Strong on Social Media. Okay. April and May can get really crazy, but there's a lot to celebrate. So I'm going to really break it down, some to-do lists, including taking care of yourself, celebrating events, staying consistent. We're even going to talk about maybe what you should or shouldn't put on social media. I'm going to give you some strategies for covering events. And you guys, I've got a really big announcement that I'm sharing at that April 11th event. And you got a chance to win some prizes. Yeah, I'm giving away stuff. So you're going to want to sign up. The link is in the show notes. Get signed up right now and let all of your school PR friends know about this. It's really going to help you finish the year strong. Again, the webinar is happening live on April 11th. If you can't join live, only those that sign up get the recording. Okay. So only if you sign up do you get the recording. It's going to be incredible. You're going to walk away with tips that you can use right away to help you really make the most of the end of this school year. So again, 9 practical tips for finishing the year strong on social media. Join me and get signed up today. And now on to this week's episode. Hey there, welcome to the podcast. So excited to introduce you to Sarita Maybin. She is a motivational speaker, communication expert, and author. And you guys, everybody needs to communicate and listen to the titles of her books. Her first book is called If You Can't Say Something Nice, What Do You Say? And that was followed up recently with her second book, Say What You Mean in a Nice Way. And since I am, Wisconsin, Minnesota nice, I feel like most of what I say is pretty nice, but she really breaks some things down and we're going to apply them to how that impacts your job in school communications and the use of social media. You are not going to want to miss this interview, and definitely you can check out all of her work and get her hired for your next event at saritamaybin.com. Just a reminder, it's April and my book is going to be available very soon. socialschool4edu.com/book. You're going to get all the information there on how to purchase it. I've also got a very special webinar coming up that I will get you the details for. It's a free webinar and I'm doing some awesome training on that. So can't wait for you to check out my book. I can't believe that Sarita's written 2 because writing 1 was a lot of work. But we've got about 300 pages packed full of advice, social media for schools, proven storytelling strategies and ideas to celebrate your students and staff without losing your sanity. So check that out. But first, we've got this week's K-12 PR tip. Hey there, today's K-12 PR tip. Are you ready for Teacher Appreciation Week? It is happening at the beginning of May. Now, this year, there's some controversy. When are we celebrating Teacher Appreciation Week? We are sticking with some of the first week of May. So we're going May 1st through the 5th. There are some people that are doing that second week of May because that's like a full Sunday through Saturday. Whenever you celebrate it, it's all good. I can tell you that on my calendar, the National Teacher Day is May 2nd. So it's the first Tuesday of May and we are celebrating that. So how are you going to celebrate that on social media? First of all, I hope that you just celebrate what you're actually doing for your teachers at your school. Second, a great prompt question. Who was your favorite teacher? Or maybe a throwback of, hey, can you name any of your elementary teachers? You're going to get a ton of engagement, which spurs the algorithm to show your post to even more people. Is a very easy idea for either Teacher Appreciation Day or week. You can obviously celebrate some things and you can find more resources on Teacher Appreciation Week on my website. You can search Teacher Appreciation Week and you'll get several articles and even some podcasts on the subject. So check that out. That's this week's tip. Now let's get to this week's interview with Miss Sarita Maybin. She is an incredible author, motivational speaker, and she would love to come to your area soon. So let's meet Sarita. Hello, Sarita. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Andrea. It's great to be here.
Yes, we got the pleasure of meeting down in Milwaukee. You were one of the featured keynote speakers at the Wisconsin Education Convention in January. How'd you like January Milwaukee weather?
Well, I hear that I got a reprieve from the usual weather. It was unseasonably warm, I say in quotes as a San Diegan, unseasonably warm in the 50s.
Yeah,
So,
and we had no snow, which was
yep,
kind of a bummer. I bet you were kind of looking forward to a little bit of snow,
no,
maybe.
nope.
No, not even a little.
I grew up, Andrea, as a military brat, moving around, living in the country and out of the country, a lot of time in Europe and Germany and Boston, Chicago, Kansas. So I lived in a lot of cold places growing up, and my goal in life as an adult was to move somewhere warm.
Yes.
So I've been here for a few decades in San Diego, so my blood has become thin.
Yeah, mission accomplished. Well,
Yes.
Sarita, I would love for you to just kind of share your background, and you've written two wonderful books, and I'd love for you to just kind of tell us a little bit about those as well.
Yeah, well, my first book is now more than a decade old, but it was originally created because I start a lot of my keynotes by sharing my mother's age-old wisdom. If you can't say something nice, and everywhere I go, even as far away as the Arctic Circle, they can complete the phrase and they say, "Don't say anything at all." But invariably somebody will come to me after a keynote and say, "Well, Sarita, if you can't say something nice, what do you say?" And those exact words became the title of my first book. Because my contention is that you can say what you mean and mean what you say, but you don't have to say it mean. So that's kind of my guiding motto, my guiding principle is that we can say what's on our mind, even if it's not positive, but we can do that in a way that's not mean or disrespectful. So that's what led to the first book all those years ago.
And then
And
what's your second book
And the
entitled?
second book, which was my pandemic project, I wrote that in 2020 while I was speaking virtually. And that book is Say What You Mean in a Nice Way. And truth be told, I originally wanted the book to be called Say What You Mean What You Say, and Don't Say It Mean, but that title was way too long. Wouldn't fit on the spine. So I had to shorten it, Say What You Mean in a Nice Way. And it's really just the sequel to the first book, really talking a lot of, I think, focusing a little bit more on communicating with kindness, but also focusing on the fact that we're all online and we're emailing and we're doing social media, and that's been kind of the slant of that second book.
Yeah, and you are speaking to my audience right now. As school communicators, we often ask the question, if I can't say something nice, like, what am I supposed to say? Um,
Yes.
so leading up to those books, Sarita, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I feel like your audience are my kindred spirits because education is actually my background. When I went to college as a psychology major many years ago. I had no idea what I was going to do until I became a student leader on campus and discovered they pay people to do this. So that led to a 13-year career working in 4 state universities as various roles, all the way ultimately to assistant dean and interim dean of students. And so in those 4 different universities, I always had what's the word? Other duties as assigned, where I'd
Yes.
have to speak, of course, as a director of new student programs, which was one of my favorite jobs I had along the way for 6 years. I was doing a lot of speaking to large groups of new students and parents, and realized that my real calling was speaking. And so that's when I made the career change and decided to become a speaker. And I started out as a contract trainer with one of those seminar companies, where people go to the hotel 9 to 4, learn how to deal with difficult bosses, whatever. But I was doing that for 5 years. And then in 1999, just 24 years ago, I cannot even believe that. 24 years ago, went out on my own and started my own speaking business.
Awesome. You've been doing it for so long. So
I
that
know.
is,
I cannot even believe.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. My
Um,
daughter just turned 31 a few weeks ago, and I started speaking my first speaking engagement. Yeah, she was a toddler, so it's just
oh,
crazy to think that I don't even know how I've been doing it this long, but I enjoy it and I love it. I speak to all types of audiences. a lot of conferences, a lot of keynotes, but the education group are my kindred spirits because that's where I spent a lot of time. And of course, my master's was in college administration and with a specialty in counseling. So did a lot of administration and a lot of working with students and dealing with problems, staff training, staff conflicts. So all of that is kind of the content came with me when I left higher ed of all the teamwork, working together better has been my tagline for 21 years, and dealing with ways that we can be better together at work.
Yeah, and if anybody's watching the YouTube version, we do share this video. You're going to be like, how does Sarita have a 31-year-old, and how has she been doing this so many years? Because you must have started when you were like 2 years old, I think.
Well, I told my daughter, I said, I don't know how you got to be 31 when I'm eternally 39. And
Right.
she goes, Mom, the math is not adding up anymore. The math is not adding up.
Darn it. Well, I just have a question, and we'll get into more specifically in your book and how it relates to school PR. But how do you personally use social media in your current role as an author and kind of an international speaker?
Yeah.
Social media has when you started back in 1999 wasn't really a thing, but obviously you've had to adopt it. So how are you using
Yes.
that for your business?
Well, I have to say, there was a move to social media just casually, as we all know, in the mid 2000s, everybody kind of started getting Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, blah blah. But I did not become serious about social media until the lockdown, because I actually had one of the many speakers bureaus who booked me. She said to me, Sarita, I have been all up in your social media, and I see no evidence of you ever having done a virtual keynote. And she says, but because I've booked you to speak in person previously, I'm going to trust that you're going to do a good job. And that's when the light bulb went off over my head, went off that, oh my gosh, speakers bureaus and clients are vetting us based on our social media. Like they're trolling our social media, looking at our LinkedIn, looking at our Twitter, looking to see, have you done any keynotes? Have you done any speaking? What's your message? What's your brand? And so it's more and more social media is becoming a way that people are looking to see what's going on, whether it be at your school or certain activities, certain programs. If you're doing fundraising for your schools, even they want to know, where's this money going to? What are the programs you're doing? All of that I've discovered just literally in the last several years, that's where everyone is going to check you out. I have a website. I've had a website forever, but they don't go to the website. They go to social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you kind of relate it to how educators and schools need to use it as well, because they might not be going to your website. Future teachers might not be going to your website, but they may be going to social media to check it out.
That's
And
right.
so
That's
that's
right.
very important. So what
Mm-hmm.
opportunities do you see for educators to use social media to kind of promote that kindness, that positivity in schools?
Yeah. I feel like it goes back to something my mother used to say. I have my late mother, God rest her soul. She was a wealth of wisdom. And one of the things she used to say was, actions speak louder than words. And so I found that, on social media, I noticed some people will say, oh, look at us, we did this, or look, we did that, or we have so many statistics about this and that. But really, as you probably know, Andrea, it's all about the stories, and posting, what are you actually out there doing? What are some fun ways that people have demonstrated kindness and positivity in the activities that you've done, rather than just saying, we embrace kindness and positivity. Can you show that in action with people actually doing things? And I remember when we first started in the mid 2000s with social media, in fact, Facebook is good about reminding me of what I've done since I was beginning of time. When I was first on Facebook. And I mean, we're talking like 14, 15 years now. And it's so funny because as it gets older and older, I see, so it used to be a little paragraph saying, I just came back from Wisconsin speaking to a great group of educators. And it would be like a little paragraph. Whereas now it's put the picture up there of you doing something and keep the words to a minimum, and really let people see the story. Let the picture or the photo share a story.
Definitely. What came to mind, I just saw, and we've seen these videos before, but I just saw one come out of West Salem school district here in Wisconsin. It was a basketball game. The team was going to win, but the other team had put in a student who normally does not get to play. And they made sure that that student scored a 3-pointer. And then after that, they made sure he got the ball back again. And then he got a 2-pointer. And I mean, the whole crowd, both teams are cheering. Like if you want to talk about having an inclusive school that celebrates all of your students that are developing kids with compassion and kindness and understanding, that video, like, it gives me goosebumps talking about it. That's the stories we're talking about, right, Sarita?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I think that those feel good stories, though, I think that's really what people want. People crave that. That's what they're looking for when they're scrolling. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I wish more people would read your first book. I'm going to ask you a few questions about your second book, but I wish a few more people, because if they would read your book and say, if you can't say something nice, even if they would have done your mother's saying of don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
But, so many people are so vocal nowadays on social media. There's a lot of, whether your school is a public school, a private school, a charter school, we're just kind of really under a lot of scrutiny with how we handle kids, how we're educating kids, what books they're reading, all of that stuff. So, I've got a lot of school communicators listening, and they have to deal with some of these comments that show up on their page. So out of your book, and they should buy it, which we'll definitely link to your website so they can order their own
Amazon.
copy.
Actually, they can go to Amazon and get both books.
Okay, awesome. Yes. So what advice would you tell them? They're trying to respond to some of these things, or what would you do? Can you help answer that?
Yeah. And, really, if I had to sum up the gist of my first book, a lot of it is what I hate to say goes all the way back to the dark ages of assertiveness 101. And some of my baby boomer colleagues who are listening will remember we learned years ago that the way to respond to something is more about taking responsibility with, I'm concerned about the effect of your comment, versus you need to shut up, or you need to stop posting that, or you better not do that. So that's the distinction between the you better and the finger pointing versus, I need you to, I would appreciate, I'm concerned. I would prefer that type of wording. And I always joke about how I'm the bossy big sister, the oldest of 4. And so my tendency is to want to wag my finger and say, you better do this. But of course, and even in social media, we're needing to choose our words so that we're not in the blaming tone. We're in the, I'm concerned about the impact of your comments and would appreciate you're not posting any further negative remarks. And we can't make people do anything, but I think when people observe that kind of communication, they can see that you took the high road and you didn't get down in the dirt and get ugly with the people who are, making the nasty remarks. So
yeah, it's really good advice, because we're so quick to want to defend or get, just be like, they're attacking me, when really we're just the messenger or whatever. There may be a misunderstanding. But I think when you can really try to put yourself in their shoes and be like, oh, I can't imagine your frustration. I'm so sorry you're going through this. I really want to look into this for you. Can you reach out to this person or call this person, and trying to kind of get it offline. But you've got to come at it from the compassionate empathy side, because Sarita, we as school communicators, sometimes we send out things in 10 different ways. Okay. There's a website, there's a phone call made, there's an email, there's this whole campaign. These students are told about it for weeks. And all of a sudden a parent will be like, why didn't I know about this? And you'll be like, really? And how you want to respond is, I've done all these things, but what you really have to reflect on is, oh, I'm sorry I'm sorry you didn't realize that this was happening. We're going to look in,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, and it's so funny because I often in my keynotes joke about our evil twin. I always say, and I'm doing my little hand over here to the side of my head, but the evil twin who will want to say those things like, what rock were you under? Didn't you see the 10 things that we sent out? So the evil twin will want to just be ugly. But the best advice I've ever gotten was from a mentor I had when I was a grad student. And she says, whenever you get some sort of negative criticism, ask for more. And I always think that's the best advice I've ever received. Those 3 words, ask for more. So when someone says something nasty and we can say, can you tell me more about that? Or I'm curious to get some examples. That would be very helpful to me if you could give me a few examples. Or can you elaborate? Rather than trying to defend and explain, which someone once said is a fancy way of saying arguing. And so instead of arguing or trying to defend, to instead say, tell me more about that, or can you elaborate? Getting more information, which is probably the hardest thing for us to do because we're wanting to go into defense mode.
Right. And I think with social media, you might not ask for that specifically online, but you could say, I want to reach out. Would you please email me with more details because
That's
I'd
right.
really like to dig into this. And so again,
That's right.
trying to get it offline, but
Yeah, and trying to get it offline. And I think that's a great place to take the ask for more, to say, I'd love to hear more details about that, or I'd love some examples. Here's an email where you can reach me and share some more information or details.
yeah.
So you're right. We don't want to have that in the thread, but we do want to invite them to email with more information. Because sometimes there's a legitimate concern, but we just don't. But the way they're explaining it, it makes it hard for us to hear it because they're lashing out when indeed there may be some legitimate concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, your newest book, which is Say What You Mean in a Nice Way, Working Together Better in High-Tech Times. It sounds again like a book that we should read. Who did you write this book for? And what do you want readers to walk away with?
My biggest thing with the second book is just because you're behind your computer and you're not face to face doesn't give you a get out of jail free card to be ugly. That's really the main thing I wanted them to know, is that all of the things that we talked about in the first book about how we can explain things without attacking, without being ugly, all of that, I think it's, as someone once said, oh, you can't say something nice, just post it on Facebook. I feel like that's become the ugly mantra these days. Oh, you can't say something nice, just post it on social media. If you can't say something nice, send an email. I think we hide behind our computers sometimes. We hide behind email and social media. And so in the second book, it's really a sequel to the first one in that it's focusing on how to best communicate in a positive, kind, compassionate way. But each chapter has a little nugget or even a story about something gone awry with someone trying to communicate online and forgetting that doesn't give you license to be disrespectful. So
I can
focus.
Yeah, and I can imagine in the educator world, I mean, especially for my listeners to order your copy, but then this might be a really helpful tool to share with your staff who as much as you communicate on behalf of the school district, you've got an entire staff that's communicating constantly with your community, whether officially or unofficially on social media or emails or websites or all of that. So is it a good tool to be able to use in your organization to talk about the importance of that written communication?
I think it is a good tool. I also am happy that my big project this year was narrating the Audible audiobook.
Okay.
So now, as of January, both books are in paperback, Kindle, and Audible. So, and they can go to Audible and Amazon and find both books. So I think it is a great tool. And of course, some people prefer to listen rather than read, or they might want Kindle instead of paperback. I still love paperback, but some people like the other medium. So that's an option for them. And I think it is a great tool for giving some tips to their staff.
Yeah. So it's springtime now. I know right now you're on a little bit of a break, but where are you visiting yet this school year? I'm assuming you'll be traveling around the country. Is that right?
That's right. In fact, this Wednesday, well, actually, by the time your listeners see this, I will have just come back from 2 wonderful places, going to Tampa, Florida, where I'll be speaking for a conference, keynoting also, and then going to Santa Barbara, one of my favorite places here in California, where I live. In fact, my husband's going with me. He goes selectively with me. He's retired now, so he selectively goes with me. But we're going to be doing a little mini spring vacay in Santa Barbara, and so I will be. By the time your listeners see this, I will be fresh off of my mini vacay, spring vacation in Santa Barbara. So
I love Santa Barbara too, and my husband joined me there, and we can't wait to go back.
yeah.
So if people are interested in learning more about keynote options, because I think you'd be a great speaker at, any kind of educational convention. You certainly work for the state of Wisconsin, the school board and superintendent's conference, be a great speaker also for our school communicators. How would they get in touch with you?
I think the best bet is just to email me directly, sarita@saritamaybin.com.
Okay.
Or if they go to my website, which is saritamayben.com, there's a contact form on the website as well, and they can reach out to me there. But email is probably the easiest, sarita@saritamaybin.com.
Okay.
I also want to just make a note that I know that the folks watching this are educators, but and again, that's my sweet spot, my kindred spirits. But I do also speak for every kind of imaginable conference you can think of. And I have to say, I'm going to Tampa, Florida, and I will have been to Tampa, Florida. Last time I was in Tampa, Florida, I was speaking for the Florida School Board Association.
Okay.
So very similar to in fact, the counterpart of the one where you and I met. But this time I'm going to speak for the National Coffee Association. So it's all people have anything to do with coffee, which is absolutely going to be very, very interesting to see what kinds of things I see there, being a coffee drinker. So yeah, it's all people, everything from negotiating on the beans in South America to doing all kinds of actual production of coffee and the people who are kind of running things. So that's what I'll be doing in Tampa this time. And then, of course, in Santa Barbara, I'm speaking for the leadership of Los Angeles County for their annual, all the top leaders of the county. So I speak to a variety of groups, every kind of group you can imagine. But again, it's always a good day when I can speak to educators.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to wrap up with kind of a best social media tip. And so I know you're running it for your business. Our schools are running it, kind of on behalf of their schools. But what would you say is your best social media tip?
Oh, I think my best tip is to post something that prompts interaction. And for me, sometimes it's asking people to pick a single word. For example, I remember in November for Thanksgiving, we were talking a lot about gratitude, and I said, what are you grateful for? And that actually turned into I do a monthly communique, which is my monthly newsletter. I call it the What Do You Say communique. And that actually is available. They can sign up for that on my website homepage as well. Okay. But once a month, I send out a tip on communication, staying positive. But I did on social media ask, what are you grateful for? And I got so many different answers. In fact, in my new book, there's a whole section that pulls from some of the things that people have shared over the years about what they're grateful for and gratitude. Other times I've asked people to guess where I am. I posted one. In fact, I was on the way back from Wisconsin, come and think of it, going through O'Hare Airport, and I posted Garrett's popcorn, and I said, well, guess where? And of course, all the frequent travelers knew, oh, it's Chicago O'Hare. That's where you're going to get the Garrett popcorn. And so fun things that people can connect with and relate to, not necessarily even relating directly to my speaking business, but something that can just engage people and be kind of just for fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we are going to link to your email. You're on saritamayben.com. I'm assuming your website also has all of your social media channels, but we're also going to list those in the show notes today. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more, again, you can head to your website or head to Amazon and you can order both of Sarita's books. I want to thank you so much for, first of all, stopping by my booth and getting a chance to chat. And you actually came to my breakout session in Milwaukee.
Yes, that was a great session. That you had a lot of little nuggets of wisdom there in your session. That was great.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for flattering me. Keep up the great work with all of your speaking and inspiring for those around the world. And everybody listening in today, keep telling those positive stories. Just like Sarita said, it's not about what you say, it's what you do. And we can show those through video and through photos. So keep up the great work, and we'll see you next week. Bye, Sarita.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you.